All right, we should be live. Hello, everyone. Good morning. We were just talking about that it's sunny outside, and we are energized by that. Speaking of our topic today, energy management. So I hope all of you are enjoying the little bit of spring weather that we're having.
Absolutely. We're energized this morning.
So my name is Ailish. And my mission is focused on cultivating confidence, inspiring self discovery. And I am an introvert advocate. I'm an old soul. I'm a lifelong learner and a career coach and educator. And I just want to thank you for being here with us today.
Ailish, I tell you, our missions are so important, and knowing who we are is so important. My personal mission is to inspire and make a difference wherever I'm at, so that people feel valued and add value to others. And that's really what's important to me. That just being with people, and how can we help folks have a better day with a smile, opening a door, whatever it may be. How can you add value to somebody? Because if you search, it's there. It might be simple and it might be little, but it makes their day, it makes it well worth it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And really, if this is the first time you're joining, this is our second Authentic Leadership Live. And so we're learning along the way. Our mantra for this series is we're on the journey. So we're on the journey together. And this series is about diving into the essence of leadership through storytelling, sharing perspectives, exploring hot topics, and just empowering others to their journey of authenticity. So thank you for joining us. And, today's topic is about energy. Time and energy management. It's a large topic, and we've thought a lot about it. And the first thing that we would like to talk about is actually starting with a quote that came to mind. This quote, in some places, is attributed to Abraham Lincoln. For those of you that know me, he's one of my heroes. I just admire his contribution to not just America but the world. But one of the quotes attributed to him is, "It's not the years in your life, but the life in your years." And so let me say that again. It's not the years in your life, but the life in your years. And so Tisha and I are thinking about, what does the life in our years mean?
Yeah. And where do we spend our energy? And you think about life and you think about years. What first comes to my mind is kind of like the waste of it, and what's important, and where do I want to spend my time so I'm energized in the things that I do. I also, just talking about the Ailish makes me think we're going to have, you've heard that, you're in the valley, or you're up on the top. And so just thinking about, there's going to be bad days, but what energizes you to have the good day the next day? So.
Yeah. Good day the next day. Yeah. It makes me think about that quote. What do the lives in my year, what did the life in my years mean to me? And as we think about energy today, I want to take that down to not just, my life in general, but a weekly and a daily basis. So what does the life in my day mean on an everyday basis? And so Tisha and I are going to talk about that, those types of things, because we think about the vitality that we have in the day, our mindset, our routine. And when I start to think about the life in my day, not just my years, the life in my day, I think about the energy in the sense of, am I doing something that connects to my strengths and to that mission? Tisha and I just shared those missions, but what are my strengths, and am I able to utilize that to give me that life in my day? And sometimes I can do that more than other times, but I think that's a big part of it for me.
Well, and I like that you just shared that, Ailish, because we really want folks who are joining us now to self-reflect. What is your nugget with that? I mean, Ailish has got me thinking, and, what is that, saving that internal energy in my day, and whether it be physical or mental, so that I can be the best for me in that moment. at the end of the day, for me, it's peace of mind. What's going to bring me peace? What's going to provide joy? And even though it's a struggle in that day, what's going to do that for me? But I first have to understand myself. We have to self-reflect. And today I think Ailish and I are going to get a little bit into that. I know we are, because, we talked about our drainers and our fillers. What are our energy fillers? What are energy drainers? And, I'd love for you guys, as we talk about this, put yours in the comments. We want to hear what yours are, because I think that's important.
Yeah. And as we talk about energy drainers and fillers, it's what I think about when it comes to these things is we really, first of all, need to self-reflect on those. And so it's not, Tish and I started kind of really reflecting well before this of, what drains me, what fills me. And one way that you could do that is almost by doing a energy audit of sorts. There's many ways to do that. Some individuals actually, you can start like an energy diary if you wanted to, and track during the day, where your energy is at. I've seen people have certain scales, like you could do, low, medium, and high, or you could do on a scale of 1 to 10 and just track your energy and how you're feeling. So kind of this, overall energy audit. But then, really just reflect on during the day and during the week. When were you the most motivated? I think that the word motivation is really key here when it comes to energy draining and filling, because I need to know what motivates me also, and that's going to help me fill that bucket. And so I want to share, Tish and I want to share a little bit about what, drains and fills us. And I think we'll start with what drains us. We'll start there, and then we'll go into the fillers a little bit. And we do want to share really briefly, and this is a dynamic that Tish and I talk a lot about, but an aspect that relates to us, because we're two very different people, and how every single person experiences energy is different. And so we're glad they're able to hear two different perspectives, because one part of me is I'm an introvert. I talk about it a lot. But I'm not an introvert in the sense that you would think. A lot of individuals think, oh, introverts get very drained from social interaction. That can happen to me, but there's a different way. And so I want to talk about that. And then Tisha is, she's got this contagious energy of a wonderful extrovert.
Well, thank you. I'll take that as a compliment. and I'm looking at Ted's comment in the comments. He says, talking and sharing ideas with others energizes me. I'm right with you, Ted. And I think Ailish is as well, because we can have a conversation around it, and it's helpful, because then, at least for me, I'm not alone, right? And so if we can talk about it, and I've learned so much from Ailish in our differences and appreciation of others, and it's actually helped me connect with people better, because it's helped me recognize not everybody's like me, and that's okay.
Yeah. So what drains me? As an introvert, just as an individual, is actually not genuinely engaging with others, not having the opportunity, even if they're not in person. I do a lot online, virtually. I work remotely for Schaefer. And so I'm behind the screen a lot. And I want to talk about that in a second. But as an introvert, you'd think, well, I need my alone time. But I really crave those one-on-one connections. And the interesting thing about it is, if I'm in person with somebody, I just like having somebody be in the same room with me, sitting near me, enjoying that space together. I don't necessarily have to have them talking to me all day long. I enjoy some conversation. But if I have that presence, and we're genuinely connecting, and I'm actually going to what's filling me now instead of draining me. That's what fills me versus drains me. You might think the opposite for an introvert. And I think that really what drains me, if I'm not engaging in that space with other people, but also um, if I have too much going on at once and I start getting distracted, there's lots of distractions out there. And I'm going to, be honest, like the phone, social media, those things can be very draining. And if I have so much going on, I might go to my phone or might go to social media, and that is going to drain me because I keep going back to it, and I'm not productive. And so a lot of this, as you can see, is around this concept of being behind a screen. And COVID has changed the world that we live in. And so being behind the screen is something that drains me. And I have to figure out how can I remove that and actually, have those genuine connections with people.
Oh, that's good, Ailish. A couple things that I heard her say, and I know this about her, is like she'll, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ailish, but you will even play games with people online, like a virtual setting where you guys interact in games. I know you've did some dating online as well, had a date online. And maybe it's my generation, but I just can't even imagine that. So I appreciate that you're willing to do that. I see that as kind of exciting and intriguing. So that's interesting to me when I think about you and your knowledge in the virtual world, because you still need that interaction connection with the presence of people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So what drains you, Tisha?
Well, I'm going to be quite honest and vulnerable here is the lack of planning and time to prioritize because my brain is always moving and thinking. And often my energy is zapped because I haven't broke things down to doable chunks. I am a big picture person and I have to reel it in. And Ailish, you do a really good job at this. Ailish reels me in. I need somebody. My husband reels me in because I get so excited and I get going. It's kind of like we go to Menards. He already knows what aisle we're going in, where it's at, where it's located. And I get in there and I'm like, oh, there's this. Let's go check that out. I know we weren't coming here to get that, but I need somebody to reel me in because I could be at Menards all day long if you let me. So anyhow, just those breaking things down to those doable chunks and prioritizing. Sometimes I think because I do not prioritize, and this is my own calendar and this is my own schedule, and this is something that I'm going through right now, is I overcommit because of lack of planning. I put lots of things in my days thinking that's going to look good. And then as I get into it, something took a little bit longer or, you just never know. So it's hard for me to admit that. But being busy is also, as I was raised, being busy was a sign of good work ethic. Being busy and doing what I was asked was important. I mean that, and so I struggle with that today. That we don't have to. We can take a pause. We can plan ahead and think about those things. And which brings me to talk about Ailish and I, as we were preparing, we were talking about energy. Perhaps we should take some intentional pauses, incorporating those short breaks in our day. And sometimes I feel guilty about it, but if I put that on my calendar, I'm going to go get a facial or I have a hair appointment or I'm going to read a book. What if Ailish sees that on my calendar? Is that productive? Is that okay? And so, to me, that it's a drainer because I'm worried about what you might think.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot going on there because it's that self perception and your worry again about what you said, what others think. But ultimately, at the end of the day, there's only one person taking care of us, right? And I love that we really wanted to talk about that intentional pausing, because how intentional are we throughout the day to pause, to reflect, and to just take ourselves out of that go busy state? And I think, whether we're working online or in person, or even just thinking about our calendar, holding that space and that time. For me, I'm one of those individuals that I do get drained if I have things back to back to back. Those back to back meetings, I see those on a lot of individuals' calendars. And sometimes I wonder, how can we just transition? How can our minds just transition from one thing to the next? And having, I know there's science behind this of really just having that mental break and that transition, that shift in our mind to pause and take a moment. And for me, just even walking outside and, especially during the nice weather, taking a walk around the block and coming back, having some sort of reset, having a pause reset can be very powerful.
I like that. I think also English needs to become a part of the culture. We need to set that as the expectation. I just had a meeting with AccuTech this week, and they do that. They have ping pong tournaments. They have the space where they intentionally set up folks so that they can take a pause or a break. I think it's encouraged. But then going back to how I was raised, if my hours were 8 to 5, I better be at my desk 8 to 5, and then you have your lunch. And there's been times, if I reflect back, I didn't take no lunch break to go eat with anybody. I sat at my desk and worked and ate. And I don't know how many of you are online, but how many of us do that? We don't even take a pause at lunch because we're so into what we're doing. And could it be, if we take that pause, could we comprehend information better? Could we connect with people better? Could we really engage at a whole nother level if we intentionally take that pause?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What I'm hearing is mindfulness, Tisha. It just, even just a couple minutes can make a huge difference. And when you talk about eating lunch at your desk, I've heard about studies about do not eat lunch at your desk if at all possible. Take that time for you.
But why do people do it? Why do you think we eat at our desks? Like we don't feel like we have the time. It goes back to time. It goes back to energy. I love this conversation because I want to give people permission to take a break, to create this routine that energizes them. And whether it be a boundary, maybe you need to delegate something out. I'm a big Brene Brown fan. And one of the things that I've been talking about, and I know I mentioned this in one of our very first sessions, is that when you think about boundaries, is it okay to be uncomfortable for that moment versus being resentful later? And maybe it's resentful for time, or, oh, wow, everybody went out for lunch and they had a really good time, but now I'm resentful because I didn't go. So I could have been uncomfortable for a moment and say, hey, I'll get this to you at 2:00 instead of at 12:30, and enjoyed and was re-energized by my coworkers or my peers.
I love that. Tisha, say that again. If I could only be uncomfortable for a moment, right?
Yeah. Being uncomfortable for one moment versus being resentful later. And you think about an energy zapper. If I'm resentful, I can hold on to that for a really long time. But if I can just be uncomfortable for that moment.
Yes. Yeah. That, and that takes practice. And it sometimes it's going to take us out of our comfort zone. I see that as a skill of assertiveness as well. And that's not easy. This is, lifelong. And you also think about boundaries. You said boundaries, and I think that's a very important part of energy management. And I feel like all of us have had boundaries or haven't had boundaries, and that has created a very, if somebody has walked over our boundaries, or if we haven't held up our boundaries, because we keep saying yes to things, or we keep pushing back things for somebody else, that's going to get back to us, and that's going to really, really drain us.
Yeah, well, what I just caught too in what you said, when things get pushed back on our schedule or a calendar, that's a drainer. And so, which brings me to delegation. If we're able to delegate, what does that do to the other person? It empowers them. It might even teach them a new skill or something that they can become an expert at. But ultimately, it provides time and energy for you to take a pause or even think about a new process or new opportunity that you would really enjoy. And so to me, it goes back to that growth, and just thinking about that differently.
Absolutely. And, as we're talking too, we've been talking about boundaries, We've been talking about drainers. I do want to talk a little bit about, we've been talking a little bit, our fillers, like what truly fills us up and makes our batteries and our hearts full. And what I think about what fills me is it's really a connection between the mind and the body, engaging both at the same time. And I've talked about the connection with others, but even when I think about activities, what fills me up, and I think about when have I been most energized, two of the activities actually, Tisha, that energize me the most are dancing and pickleball.
I would agree with you on dancing. Yeah,
uh,
because just let your hair down, and I don't have much to let down, but
yeah, no,
why
I
do you
mean,
think that is in that moment? Why are you so energized?
yeah. I mean, I think there's a physical activity aspect to it of being engaged physically and the science behind that, the endorphins in one's body. But I think in both of those activities, I'm physically engaged, but I'm also connecting with other people and doing an activity that really connects us both, that we can both enjoy. And the other thing that I realize is that what energizes me, what fills me, is those times where time goes by so quickly, I don't even know that it's gone. So when you're in those moments, you're like, I can't believe that an hour just went by, or I can't believe a whole day went by. It felt like 10 minutes. That's a sign that, you're really utilizing your energy.
When you talk about most folks, when especially with leadership training and understanding your values, there's that exercise. What do you do that time stops and time
Mhm.
passes you by? Lucas put in here in the chat here, I walk home for lunch and truly believe that is a time to pause. Think about the activity of that, especially early, when we first started this session, we talked about the sun shining. If the sun is shining and you take a 15-10 minute walk home or take that walk outside, the energy, the people you see, the activity, it goes back to what I hear you saying about the dance and the pickleball, the motion of it, just getting out of your seat.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, as far as, what fills Tisha, um, what's coming to mind of what's most filling to Tisha and her energy?
Well, the sunshine. I have this little thing in my mind. If there's no sun, I'm going to bring my own sunshine. Um, People engaged, people being interactive, learning something, uh, a gathering, smiles. Somebody asked me, I just recently went on a trip. I think it was Ted asked me what I remember most. It was the smiles. I'm energized by other people and their energy. But I also, don't get me wrong, I also like that time in the evening of just me. That energizes me as well because it's kind of like if the phone's ringing all day and you're talking to people on the phone, sometimes you go home and you don't want to talk to anybody, and that's that pause too. So
Mhm.
um, I don't know if I answered your question other than gathering, being around people, watching and observing their energy.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love what you said, because what stood out to me is that you bring the sunshine. Tisha brings the sunshine, and Tisha has a contagious energy. Her energy is contagious. And that's what I love too, also about being an introvert, is I love being around others where their energy is contagious. And so I'd encourage folks out there to think about who around you in your life, or what circumstances or experiences where you can find energy that is contagious to you.
Oh, I
Um,
like that.
Everyone has a different experience with that. Something that might be contagious, more contagious to you than it is to me.
It just popped in my head. You think about, emotional bank accounts, right? And so you think about what brings you joy, what's a fulfillment. Even when I go to a store, I will take the grocery cart back, right? Because to me, I'm making somebody's day by doing that, or opening up the door, seeing somebody else's reaction to something they're not expecting. in brightening their day. That's what I mean about bringing the sunshine. Brightening, I can't even say that. Brightening up somebody's day, right? By bringing the sunshine to them, by doing something unexpected to help somebody out. That goes back to adding value. That goes back to my mission. If I'm adding value to somebody, then it gets contagious. Kind of like, you go to Starbucks and somebody buys your coffee and you're like, oh, now I'm going to buy somebody else's behind me. It is contagious. And I truly think us as people, we need to think about those things.
I feel like you just went full circle. I love it because, we're going back into our strengths and what motivates us, and paying it forward, giving back. I think about just how are we all difference makers, but we're difference makers in our own way, and that is what is going to fill that bucket. And how we show up. And speaking of how we show up, we were thinking about the topic for our next session. And as we keep talking, we're thinking about, we would like to talk about leadership presence, how you show up as a leader. What does that mean? So that's the next topic that we want to tackle. And we also want to hear from you. If you have thoughts and ideas, we're going to be doing this once a month for the entire year. And so if there's something that is really on your mind that you want to have a conversation about, connect with us on LinkedIn, put it in the comment box for one of our events. We would love to hear from you. But yeah, next time I'm really thinking about just that, not what we're saying or all the time, but just our presence and how we are having, again, that energy in the room.
Oh, I love that, Ailish. And just to recap on that, Ailish told me a little bit ago, she commented on my red, and to me, that's a part of showing up, how I show up, right? I know Valentine's Day, but I feel better when I'm prepared. And so how do you show up? Do you show up in your pajama pants online on the bottom? I don't know, but I think that affects how you deliver as well. So I'm excited about the next conversation. So thank you, Ailish.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. And we always love to leave you with a couple resources at the end of our session related to our topic, related to time and energy management. One individual that we follow and who has some great resources is Mel Robbins. And Mel Robbins has something called the $1 Million Morning Routine. Because when we think about energy as well, starting the day for yourself, focusing on yourself first before anything else, any other distractions. This is what she's talking about. And so it's really 5 steps to think about your morning routine. It sounds simple, but the way she describes it is very impactful and powerful. If you can do those quick 5 things, then you are going to be really set to think about how you can be most productive during the day. So that's one thing we wanted to mention, is the $1 Million Morning Routine. And also another thing, Tisha, that we've both seen is something called the Covey Time Matrix. Would you like to explain that?
Absolutely. It is 4 boxes. And, most important is at the top. And is it urgent or is it important? And if you're spending all your time in the urgent box, then you're probably always moving and grooving and never giving yourself any time, any self time to grow, because you're always putting out fires. And so, look that up, the Covey Time Matrix. It's very simple, but it's a good tool just to reflect on your schedule, on your calendar, and prioritizing and saving you energy and time, and really preventing unnecessary stress because you've planned it out. And I also like the piece, the lower right corner is the things that are really zapping your time. What is it? Scrolling through Facebook, watching TV, mindless TV, just thinking about the things where we spend our time that isn't giving us energy. And I think that is so helpful. One of the things I want to leave folks with, and this is something that I say in my head all the time, is if I put myself last, others will put me last. And so going back to the $1 Million Morning, take that time for yourself in that morning to set your day and time, because if you don't, you'll be put last on the list. And if you have an ongoing list, when do you become important?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like that was a wonderful way to wrap up our session. Put yourself first on that list and think about your contagious energy and what is contagious to you in the world. It's different for everybody. So thank you everyone for joining us. We look forward to talking about leadership presence next time, and enjoy that sunshine. Have a wonderful weekend. Take care.
Thank you. Bye-bye, everybody. Enjoy.